nicer and fancier fabrics that I got from one of my sponsors, Shannon Fabrics, and this stuff is amazing. Okay, you can see it's super soft and fluffy. It's completely machine washable and dryable, and so we're going to be making an outer cover for the inside part of the beanbag that we can then take off and put in the wash so that we can always have it nice and clean for the children. I have 3 different fabrics for each one of the beanbags I'm doing. And the reason for that is that each beanbag is going to be made up of 6 different panels. You can use 6 panels of the exact same fabric. You can switch them up, do whatever you want. Also going to be made up of the 6 panels. So just for the lining fabric, you're going to need roughly about 3 yards. And the reason I say that is because for each piece that we're going to cut out, you need to cut out 6 of these. You're going to need about half of a yard, which is 18 inches by the width of the fabric, and you're going to need 6 chunks like this. So if you don't want to cut it out separate, you can also do it in the yardage. And I love this type of a project, like for the lining that you're not going to see ever, to use up, this yard sale fabric that I always find super cheap for 10, 15, 25 cents. And I always buy it so that I can use it to create prototypes or to do things like this, which is just a lining that's not going to be seen. And so what I'm going to do with my pattern piece, notice yours is not going to look like this because I made it on the computer a lot neater for you guys, but both of these sides say place on fold, okay? And so what you need to do is, this is a part that's cut. You have a fold down here. So all we do is fold it this way. The selvages should be up this way. And so now we have 2 folds. We have a fold that we just created here, and then we have folds down here. So this is how you want to prep each one of your pieces. Now I lay my pattern piece on top. This edge needs to be flush with this fold, and this edge needs to be flush with these folds down here. And my pattern weights are inside the house, so let me improvise. Just lay something on top to keep this down, and then I'm going to only cut along the curved edge. And this is one of your pattern pieces now. You see when I open it up, it's basically the pattern times 4. And you're going to cut out 6 of them just like this. I have my 6 pieces. I'm going to show you how you're going to line this up. I'm going to put them together, pretty sides touching, pretty side of this fabric and this one. Grab your pins. You're going to start on one end. And you're just going to pin along one of these rounded edges, not the entire thing around, just here. Okay, so we're going to start here. Now to start sewing, you're not going to start all the way at the top. I want you to start a little bit further down from this tip, okay? And then I'm going to start stitching here. Make sure to back stitch to secure those stitches, and then I'm going to stitch all the way down and around this edge. I'm using the edge of my presser foot as a guide, which for me is going to be about 3/8 of an inch, which is fine. Remember to back stitch. And again, stop a little ways from that tip and back stitch. Now after you have those 3 pairs of the different panels sewn together, you're going to get 2 and 2, put them with the pretty sides touching. You want to match up that intersecting seam there at the top, and you're going to do the exact same thing you just did, which is pin across just one of the curved edges. Now put everything so that the pretty sides of the fabrics are towards the inside. Basically, we're going to be putting the lining together inside out so we can turn it around and fill it. But what you want to do is, you're not going to pin the whole thing because we have to leave an opening to fill it with our beanbag filler. So what I want you to do is pin from one end to here, and then from one end to here. And what you want to do is leave a section of about 10 to 12 inches that's unstitched, and that's going to be our hole to fill our beanbag with. So we've stitched down both sides. We have our opening here. And now before we turn it inside out, let's go to the ends here, because if you recall from where we started and stopped, you should have some kind of a hole on this side. So you definitely don't want to have that there. when you go to fill your beanbag. So there are a lot of different ways to finish this, but since this is going to be on the inside and nobody's going to see it, I'm going to do it real simple. I'm just going to pinch all this stuff together, place a couple of pins, and I'm just going to take a few zigzag stitches on my machine just to make sure that that's secured there in place. And it's not going to be the most professional finish, but it's definitely going to help keep all the filler beads inside the beanbag. And you want to do that to both ends, okay? Just make sure you have no openings on both sides.
Okay, so we're ready to fill our lining with our Polyfill beanbag filler. I have the bag propped up on a table, and then I have the lining underneath it in a chair. I'm going to just clip off this bottom corner here. It's a little tricky since I'm doing it by myself, so if you can get somebody to help you, that would probably be best.
Okay, so you can see I spilled some because I'm doing this by myself, so definitely if you have a helper, go ahead and use them. But I've already put one bag in here, and I'm going to go with the second. I figured I'd get a little lower to the ground since half the beanbag is full already. So instead I'm putting the filler bag on a chair. And the idea behind this is basically you're allowing gravity to help you by pulling them down into the bag. Once you've done both of the bags of the filler inside your beanbag lining, okay, what you need to do is stitch up this opening so you don't make a bigger mess, okay? I'm just going to fold this in right here, and I'm going to hand stitch it closed, and what I'm doing is using a double threaded needle. So I put a thread through my needle, and then I made a knot on the end, and I'm going to sew it up really tightly and really close together so I make sure that I don't have any of this stuff coming out of here. And I'm just doing a real simple whip stitch. This is not for looks. This is just for the functional purpose of keeping it shut, especially with kids. I know my kids are going to be jumping all over these things. And when you get to the end, make sure you make a nice sturdy knot.
And that's it. The inside of our beanbag chair is complete. Now let's work on the outside.
Okay, so for using our cuddle fabric, we got to go this way, fold it over, lay our pattern piece right here. So line up 3 in the order that you want, and then repeat that again here. And when we put them all together, they will alternate, okay? So that's simple enough. I'm going to stitch these together. First these 3, then these 3, and then I'm going to put the 2 halves together.
So now that the 2 halves have been sewn, I don't want these 2 right next to each other, so I'm going to turn this one around so that all the panels will alternate going around in the shape of the circle when the beanbag is complete. So let's put one on top of the other, pretty sides touching. We're going to match up the intersecting points up here just like we've been doing, and then go ahead and pin a little bit of that side. Now we're going to need to leave a gap here that's not going to be stitched open, and this needs to be large enough for you to fit the entire interior part of the beanbag chair in there. So make sure that you're leaving plenty of space, okay? I'd say I like to leave usually about 25 to 30 inches or so of an opening here. Now that I've pinned everything and I know that everything is nice and lined up, I'm going to go ahead and add my closure now so that nothing moves on me if I try to do this after it's already been sewn. So I've decided to use a snap setting kit that I have for these plastic snaps, and if you don't have a kit like this, you can find the link in the description box below this video. I'll link you directly to the exact same kit that I like to use here. So I'm adding these snaps right there to the pretty sides of the fabric so that the snaps themselves can be enclosed. Once they're snapped together, you won't see them on the outside. And the cuddle fabric here, it doesn't fray after you've cut it already, so I'm just putting the snaps about 1/2 inch in from the raw edge just to make sure that my fabric doesn't rip on me when I'm taking the snaps apart. So I've attached about 10 different snaps here to the edge, and now that everything is nice and flush, I'm just going to continue pinning on the entire opposite edge so I can just go to my sewing machine once. After you sew up those seams, we just have to cover up these little holes that we have on both ends, but this time we're going to finish it off a lot more professional than the same fabrics that I used to create the panels. So I'm going to take this pink fabric scrap here. Interfacing is pinch the 2 layers at the pretty side of our applique on both ends of the outer fabric. Depending on how wide you left that opening there, you may need somebody else to help you, but try not to rip your fabric or rip out any of the seams. Now I can just snap my little closure up. You can see it's nice and neat. And that's it. Our beanbag is done. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Super easy project, even great for beginners.